His name was Richard, retired engineer from Texas, meticulous man, the kind of man who kept a spreadsheet for everything: grocery budget, car maintenance schedule, vacation costs going back 15 years. When Richard turned 72, he sat down with his financial advisor to review his retirement accounts, $1.1 million in a traditional IRA. Everything looked fine on paper. Then his advisor ran one number Richard had never seen before: the required minimum distribution projection. Year 1, $41,000, mandatory, whether Richard needed it or not. Year 5, $51,000. Year 10, $68,000. Richard stared at that spreadsheet for a long time. Then he said something his advisor had never heard a client say before. "I built this my entire life, and now you're telling me I don't get to decide when I take it?" That moment, that specific moment of seeing the RMD numbers for the first time, is what I call the math shock. And if you have $500,000 or more in a traditional 401k or IRA, that moment is coming for you too. The only question is whether you see it now, while you can still do something about it, or at 73, when the IRS has already made the decision for you. And today I'm going to show you exactly what the math shock looks like in real dollars, and the strategy smart retirees are using right now to turn this RMD off before it becomes a tax problem they never planned for and cannot escape. If this is the first time you are hearing about the pre-RMD window, stay with me. You are in exactly the right place.
Let's start with what an RMD actually is, because most people know the acronym but have never seen what it costs them in real dollars year after year for the rest of their lives. Required minimum distribution. Starting at age 73, the IRS requires you to withdraw a specific amount from your traditional IRA or 401k every single year. The amount is calculated by dividing your account balance by your life expectancy factor, a number the IRS sets and adjusts annually without your input, without your permission. The formula sounds bureaucratic. What it produces is not. Here is what Richard's math shock looked like on paper. Account balance at 73, $1.1 million. IRS life expectancy factor, 26.5. First RMD, $41,509. Mandatory. Taxed as ordinary income. Added directly to every other dollar of income Richard received that year. Richard also had Social Security income of $32,000 per year. At his combined income level, now pushing $73,000, 85% of his Social Security became taxable. That added another $27,200 in taxable income he had not planned for. Total taxable income in year 1 of RMDs, approximately $68,700. Federal tax bill, over $10,000. State taxes on top of that. Here is the part that produced the real shock. Richard didn't need the $41,000. He had pension income covering his living expenses. He was comfortable. The RMD wasn't money he was choosing to take. It was money the IRS was forcing him to take, and taxing every single dollar of it as ordinary income. The freight tax train doesn't ask if you're ready. It doesn't ask if you need the money. It arrives at 73 and it does not stop. Now here is what makes the math shock compound, the part most advisors never put on the table. The account doesn't stop growing just because RMDs start. If Richard's IRA earns 5% annually and he is withdrawing roughly 3.8% in year 1, the account is still growing, which means next year's RMD is calculated on a larger balance, a larger mandatory withdrawal, more taxable income, a higher tax bill. Year 1 RMD, $41,509. Year 5 RMD, approximately $51,000. Year 10 RMD, approximately $64,000. Every year the train moves faster. Every year the tax bill grows. Over a 20-year retirement horizon, Richard's projected total RMD tax burden on money he never planned to take and could not stop the IRS from forcing him to take exceeded $280,000. $280,000. Not lost to a market crash, not lost to a bad investment. Lost to a system Richard didn't fully understand until the math shock hit at 72. Think about what $280,000 actually represents. That is a grandchild's college education, fully funded, twice over. It is 5 years of travel in retirement. It is the legacy Richard wanted to leave his daughter, quietly building in the background while he lived on his pension and Social Security. Instead, it went to the IRS, not in a lump sum, not in one visible blow, but in annual installments that felt small in the moment and devastating across a decade. The math shock is not just a number. It is a portrait of what was possible, and what the clock quietly took away. There is one more layer most retirees never see coming. It has nothing to do with income tax brackets. It is called IRMAA, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, a Medicare premium surcharge that activates automatically when your income crosses certain annual thresholds. A single filer crossing $103,000 in income pays several $100s more per month in Medicare Part B and Part D premiums, on top of the income tax increase from the RMD. Richard's combined RMD and Social Security income pushed him past that threshold in year 3 of retirement. His Medicare premiums jumped by over $800 per year. Nobody warned him. It appeared quietly and automatically because the RMD pushed his income over a line he didn't know existed. This is the hidden tax almost nobody mentions in the retirement planning conversation, and it is completely avoidable if income is repositioned before the RMD forces it past the threshold. Here is what makes that number devastating. A retiree crossing the IRMAA threshold faces 3 separate tax hits from one account balance: income tax on the RMD, income tax on 85% of Social Security, and a Medicare premium surcharge. 3 separate hits, all automatic, all avoidable, if repositioning happens before the window closes. So, how do smart retirees turn this RMD off? Not completely. The IRS doesn't offer a full-off switch for money already in a traditional IRA, but they offer something close. And the window to use it is open right now for retirees between 60 and 72. It closes the moment mandatory distributions begin. The strategy has 3 components. Component 1, the Pre-RMD Roth Ladder. Between ages 62 and 72, convert a deliberate, phased amount each year from your traditional IRA into a protected tax-free container, paying the tax now at your current bracket, rather than later at whatever rate the IRS assigns when you have no choice. If Richard had converted $60,000 per year from age 65 to age 72, staying inside the 22% bracket deliberately, his year 1 RMD would have dropped by nearly half. His annual tax bill would have dropped by over $4,000 every single year from that point forward. That is not a loophole. That is the tax code working exactly as designed for the people who know how to use it. Component 2, the Structured IUL, a properly structured indexed universal life policy under IRC. Section 7702 becomes your second protected tax-free container. Cash value grows linked to a market index. If the market goes up, you make more money. If the market goes down, you don't lose any money from that downturn. 0 is your floor, and there is no required minimum distribution, no IRS schedule forcing your hand at 73. The money you move here does not appear in the RMD calculation, does not push you into a higher bracket, does not trigger the IRMAA surcharge. The largest banks in America hold billions in bank-owned life insurance, BOLI, because cash value inside a properly structured policy is a Tier 1 asset, the same category as cash and U.S. Treasury bonds. Component 3, standard deduction arbitrage. Each year, fill your lower tax brackets deliberately, converting just enough to use the 12% and 22% bracket space without crossing into 24% or higher, paying tax on your terms, at your rate, in amounts you control, designing your tax future instead of inheriting it from the IRS. Richard came to me at 72, 1 year before his first RMD. We had 12 months to reposition what we could before the train arrived. We moved $75,000 that year, deliberately at his current bracket, before Social Security fully inflated his income. It wasn't everything, but it was real, and it mattered. At the end of that session, Richard said something I have thought about many times since. I wish I had seen these numbers 10 years ago. 10 years earlier, Richard was 62. The window was wide open. The bracket room was generous. The conversion cost would have been dramatically lower, and the math shock at 72 would have been a much smaller number, or no shock at all. The window is the asset, and for most people watching this right now, that window is still open. The year. The window became permanent. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed July 4, 2025, permanently extended the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act individual rates. That matters more than most people realize. For years, retirees who understood the pre-RMD window were still planning around uncertainty, not knowing whether the brackets they were using today would still exist in 2 or 3 years. That uncertainty is gone. The 24% bracket ceiling, the standard deduction amounts, the $6,000 senior bonus deduction for couples over 65, all of it is set. A married couple, both over 65, can now extract up to $39,800 per year from a traditional IRA at zero federal tax, with certainty, not as a guess. 8 years at that rate is $318,400 permanently rescued from the RMD machinery before the math shock ever arrives. That is not a projection. That is the arithmetic of a window that is open right now, with a defined number attached to it on a schedule the IRS itself published. The only question is whether you use it before it closes.
Here is your mirror moment. If you have $500,000 or more in a traditional 401k or IRA, and you have never run your RMD projection year by year from age 73 to 85, you have not seen your math shock number yet. It is coming. The only variable is whether you see it today, while the pre-RMD window is still open and you can act. Or at 73, when the IRS hands you the number, calls it mandatory, and sends you the bill. The window does not announce when it closes, it just closes. Quietly, permanently. Below this video is a link. Click it. Book a private one-on-one strategy session. We will run your actual RMD projection, your balance, your growth rate, your Social Security income, your tax bracket, and show you exactly what your math shock number is and exactly how much of it we can turn off before the freight train arrives. You spent decades building this. Spend 30 minutes understanding what the IRS has planned for it. Rescue, reclaim, retire richer.